Hey everyone, it's M4J here and welcome back to the OpenTTD tutorial series here, funny enough, on OpenTTD. I am just getting up my notes here so that I make sure that I'm recording the right thing. Yes, here we are. Awesome. So we're over here in Guard Lake, which for those of you that don't know is right in the middle of Guard City, which is an absolutely humongous city here on the game. If I was to load up my plan list, just do show all. This big box that you can see here, this is Guard City. I was going to say Greater Guard City. It technically is Greater Guard City, but you know what I mean. A bit like Greater London, Greater Manchester, that kind of thing. Let's hide all those because it was slowing my game down a little bit. Now I'm going to unpause the game here and let it go. I've just finished recording the last tutorial episode, which was all about downloading the latest JGR patch, how to do that. So if my game does crash, then obviously that patch may need a little bit more work, but I think for the most part it is fine. Welcome then to this tutorial, which is all about my settings, what NewGRFs I use, what settings I use, how I play the game basically. So again, I'm not going to be teaching you how to build stations like Guard Lake over here, or build tram lines or one-way roads or anything like that. I am purely going to be teaching you, or not even teaching you, just showing you what settings and NewGRFs I use. And to be honest, I might as well start with the NewGRF list, because that part I feel is going to be the quickest bit. Now this is subject to change always. I'm constantly adding little things, removing little things, stuff like that, whatever it takes to... Oh, looks like I've got a latest version somewhere. Timberwolf I think's been updated again, possibly. I'm going to apply that change. Yes, sorry. How to download and install NewGRFs is something I'll probably cover in a later tutorial. But I'm constantly changing my NewGRFs depending on what's hot and what's not, or if there's something that I didn't know existed before, I come back and download it and things like that. So let's go through. I'm not going to go through all of them. If you want to pause the video now or take a screenshot or something like that, then that will probably be the quickest way to see the full list. But I'm going to highlight the ones that I feel are important. So the first one up here is the base cost mod. This is one that I probably should use less of now, actually. If anyone remembers the original M4J Network way back when I was still possibly on the JGR, on the Joker patch, sorry, I had a big problem with the company just hemorrhaging money. And it turned out, with inflation and things like that, costs were excessive. So the base cost mod allows you to change the cost of things. I think it also, I believe, allows you to change how much money you make from things as well. So, for example, up here, miscellaneous, which I believe is the, if I load up the finances, you can't actually see it. Never mind then. You can kind of see the other section here. I believe it's to do with that. I've got it set to free at the moment. I could probably change that, in fact. Most of these you can see I have changed. Some of these I've... most of these are unchanged. Some of these I have tweaked a little bit, like locomotive purchase is half, wagon, aircraft. Those I could probably change back at some point. I'll look at that off camera. Running costs are the ones that I changed a lot, and funding industries. Why did I change that to free? I don't know. Again, I'll look at that off camera and see. But you can see there's lots of different things here that you can change. Maintenance is something that I will definitely turn back on, because eventually I'm going to have patrons on here running trains and things like that, and that's going to be where I'm going to make most of my money from. But because I own the infrastructure, I'll need to pay the costs for maintenance. So all of that will get turned back on, and I'll probably go broke immediately, but there we go. Then we got Bob's British Buses, which I use, you may see in the background, occasional road vehicles and things like that going past. That's mainly the provider of those. Not all of them are from that. Some of them are from, I believe, Timberwolf's set, which I'm trying to find and I can't, but it's on here somewhere, I'm sure. Chips, custom docks and stations, pretty self-explanatory. They're custom stations, custom docks. City stations, that's one I'm tempted to remove because I don't really use it very much. But the big one for me, the most important one, is the Dutch station set. And I am actually going to close this window for this. Guard Lake over here. Guard City St. George. Halliday Circus. Where else? Over here, Guard City St. Bartholomew. Every single mainline station that you can see on the screen here. There's GSC, Guard City St. Christopher. Over here, Guard City St. Elizabeth. St. Michael and St. Peter, both here. St. Mark, Bankside as well. St. Thomas. And then over... Actually, no, with the exception of St. John. But all the other stations in Guard City pretty much are the Dutch station platform set. It is an absolute game changer in every sense of the word. It is a fantastic set. If you don't have it, get it. It is by far the most in-depth station set that I have found, and I can't recommend it enough. It is absolutely awesome. And there's lots of different editions. The actual main one is here. Again, I don't think there's any parameters. There are not. So there's no like little secret settings or anything like that. And then these are all additions that just add to the base one. Heavy equipment set. Some of the big diggers and things that I've got come from that. Modern trams. Again, pretty self-explanatory. UK railway set. Now this is something I'm actually going to remove in the near future, and I'm just going to use the BR set. So you may see some things with the trains change, but ultimately it's a good set. There's nothing wrong with the set. You know, you can add liveries and things like that, and it's really, really cool. But I want to rely on a single set for just keeping things more streamlined, to be honest. There's no other reason. Just to keep things a little bit easier. So that one will get removed. Very large ships. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Different types of stations here as well. There's a tram set there. The modular locomotive sheds. If I show you over... I always forget where it is. Here. We've got Garthill Locomotive Depot, which way back when this map was first created was actually used, whereas now it's like a museum site. But that is the modular loco. Also, if you remember my new M4J Network video on the sidings down at Sanley, I used the locomotive sheds there as well. So there's a couple of variants. There's a shed version, like a literal shed version, and then there's a modern like sheet metal shed version as well. Again, that's what it says on the tin. Vast assortment of station tiles. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Lots of stuff there. Lots of different station tiles. BROS, British Rail OpenTTD set pre-release. Now this, again, I don't actually know if this is relevant anymore with the BR set version. But it just adds on to British trains. There's some more things in there. I think it's a lot of third rail trains in there, but I might be wrong. DAC, which I want to remember what that is, and I can't off the top of my head, but it adds, I believe, European trains to the game. Same with the Dutch train set. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Japanese stations, so all the HLR stations, there's a couple of them here. They are part of the Japanese station set. Ore unloader, that's one I don't think I use very often either, so might remove that at some point. Bob's Random British Vehicles, again, pretty self-explanatory. UK road set with signs. Now that is one I do need to remove because I actually use the Timberwolf road set, which I'll come back to in a bit. UK waypoints. Again, I think the signal boxes actually that I use as waypoints might come from that set. I definitely need to have a clear out of this though, because this is crazy. Fish. Now Fish is a ship set, I believe, where it's got, there's no parameters here, so I can't tell you for sure. But I believe, if I was to remove this over to the side here, if I was to find a depot, there we go, new ships. Yeah, Fish. So it adds a whole variety of ships. Some of which I believe, yeah, they have a type, they have a propulsion, and a lot of it's just flavor text. It doesn't really change anything, because there are some as well where it says where they can run. So like, yeah, cargo vessel for inland waterways, but you can literally run this barge anywhere. It won't say it's limited. It's just flavor text, which I think is pretty cool, to be honest. Fake airport objects. If you've watched my last few episodes of the new M4J network, you'll know what that's all about. When we built the airport, we used pretty much all of those. Useless tracks. Now, if I scooch back to... actually, I don't need to scooch to Sanley. Somewhere around here, I do in fact have... Where is it? I have a metro line. I believe it's down this way, where I have in fact used useless tracks. There we go. So you see we've got the functional track, which is this one here, and then we've got the useless track right next to it. And it just looks like an overgrown track, like the rails have been pulled up but the ballast has been left behind. Simple as that. I think it looks really cool, really pretty. It just adds that little extra element to your game. I don't know if these can actually be used as functional tracks. I imagine no, they can't. But I do find it a really nice little addition. And again, in Sanley, I've used them where some tracks been ripped up on the old Sanley Bay lines. Town and industry, UK houses. So I think this just changes the housing type here to look like UK houses rather than European ones. Industrial stations renewal. So that's the ISR that you see me use when I'm building my freight terminals and things like that. So it's got fixtures, it's got unloaders, loaders, all that kind of thing. Again, it's a really, really neat little addition. Just makes your freight stations look that little bit better in comparison. Total bridge renewal set. This is a big one. So you might notice my bridges look a little bit different to the default ones you get in the game. That's what the bridge renewal set adds. So you've got a wide range of bridges. If I grab... of course it went there, didn't it? If I do this and then just find a random patch of land where I can build a bridge. There we go. These are your options. So you've got tubular steel, viaduct, tied arch, stone arch, Leppington high speed, truss bridge, viaduct stone or brick, brick arch, brick road or rail, suspension steel, hexam steel girder, which is a slightly strange looking one, and then suspended monorail bridge, which is an incredibly strange looking one. That one you do kind of need, I think, extra track types or something like that to make that one look a little bit more normal. Fake bridges, I think that's fake water bridges. Again, I can't remember off the top of my head. Dutch train set, that's kind of a big one, although again I might be using it less on the new M4J network. There's not as big a demand for it. British station set is also another one actually that I might remove or see if there's a newer version of somewhere. DWE, stations, objects, all that kind of thing. Again, pretty good. I use them from time to time, but not very often. UK renewal train set. Again, this is something that I will be removing at some point in the future, just because I don't really want to use them anymore. BL stations modern. Again, pretty self-explanatory. City objects. So these are eye candy. If you see occasionally, I might throw in an eye candy building like a supermarket or something like that. That comes from the city objects set. FRIS, stations and other infrastructure. FRIS, fish, furs, they're all kind of similar in that they're all industrial based, and I think FRIS just adds industrial stations to the game. New stations, I actually don't know what that is, what that's added, so I might have to look at that one as well. This is vast again. Modern train set, fixes, yeah, so that's some fixes to furs, which is the industrial set, which have I not mentioned furs yet? I thought I had, but maybe not. So furs adds the industries that you see me use. So again, if I open this, pretty much all of these industries, some of them are in the original game, so like iron ore mine, coal mine, forest, what else? Farms, I think, are in the original game. But things, you know, like hotel, hardware store, grocer's shop, grain mill, glassworks, furniture factory, these are all added in FRS. And there are a lot of industries now, as you can see, including shopping centre, which is pretty cool. Requires food, produces nothing. If only shopping centres did that in real life as well. But it increases the display chain. So, you know, you've got all of these different display chains. So if we select an industry, aluminium, for example, This is where scrap metal, bauxite, chemicals come from to the aluminium plant, get turned into metal, and this is where the metal can go. There's a lot of extra elements added to the game with that, and again, freaking love it. It's awesome. Hungarian stations in a Hungarian style. US station set. Again, some of these I might remove just because I've added them in the past 5-6 years and just end up not using them but not removing them. Custom tunnel entrances, narrow gauge track, various types. Alexandra Palace, which I think literally just adds Alexandra Palace, but not the palace itself. I think it's the station that it adds. Japanese trains, which I might keep for the high-speed network. We'll see about that. Right now, Master Trams is creating the timetable for me for the high-speed network using Eurostar TGV sets, 373s. So I'm not going to use these right now, but you never know in the future. Might be worth upgrading. Transrapid track. So if I go over to GSJ, don't know my way around my own city. This track here, this is Transrapid track. This is that set. It's really, really cool. Modern maglev trains. Again, I think the ones that I've got here right now, which are going to change in the near future, but I believe these are part of that set. This is the Transrapid 07. There we go. In case anyone was wondering, that's what I use at the moment on the Transrapid, but that will change in the future. General UK stuff, some more UK railway stuff, UK revival. There's FIRS replacement set, so there's lots of different versions of FIRS. You can see the one I'm on. Even the one I'm on, I kind of broke it when I added it because I wasn't entirely sure what I was doing. But there's lots of different settings that you can set up. Most of it I've not messed with. Most of these actually I've not really messed with too much. Tried not to anyway. BR tracks. Now mine here is a little bit broken. Supposedly you can change the ballast width and things like that. But in my usage, I've not found a way to actually do that. But all the track that you see me use, apart from the Transrapid and the narrow gauge track, all of that is BR tracks. So just go and wait for the donut of death to disappear on my screen. There we go. So where my cursor is now, the throat here to GSJ, that is BR tracks. And if I come up here, all of the ones with speed limits here, apart from I think these two at the bottom, all the others, to my knowledge, actually this one as well isn't, but all of the others are BR tracks. And I need to close that. There we go. But yeah, like I said, it's supposed to have the full width ballast and things like that. And when you have full width ballast, you don't see any green under the track. But I've changed it a few times, as you've just seen there, and it doesn't do anything. So I don't know if I've messed up or not, but you can see there's lots of different options. Complex gauge mode, so I think you have to have trains that are certified to run on certain routes, which does sound fun actually. That does sound fun, but I've gone with the complex electrified version because I think that limits me a little bit more. So, you know, just because you have an electric train doesn't mean it can run on third rail and things like that. Squid 8 fish, that's just a ship thing. Again, Timberwolf's UK road vehicles. Now that's an important one, particularly in the last few weeks for me where I've been adding more and more road vehicles to the network. That adds more trucks, buses, trams, things like that. Modern UK train set, again, that's probably something I can remove. UK town set, now that's the one, sorry, that adds the houses here. I don't know what the other one does then. Might have to have a look at that one too. Dutch stations as waypoints. Pretty self-explanatory again, it just takes Dutch platforms and turns them into waypoints. Not all of them, just some of them. Dutch Delta Works, I don't know what that is either, I'll have to have a look at that. Then you've got the Oz objects, which are Australian. Again, clues in the name. So you've got farm objects, road and rail, and water. The water ones are quite nice, but there's a couple of parts of it that are missing, in my opinion, which means it's a little bit limiting. Then you've got the ISR DWE style objects. So these aren't station tiles. These are eye candy objects that you can add in. So things like, if I head over to one of my freight terminals, you'll see like piles of coal, even though, let's see if there are any over here, actually. No. But I think there will be at south. Just scroll down here. Apologies if you can hear my mouse banging against the desk. There you go. So this here is the same source as these station tiles, like this one, for example, but it's an object instead of a station tile. So it's not animated. It doesn't gain or lose any objects depending on whether there's a train in, loading or unloading. It's just a static object, as opposed to some of these platforms. In fact, there's some more there, which it makes it quite hard to click on. So these ones here with the barrels on, these are actual station tiles, and as ships load up or as trains load up or empty, the amount of barrels will be gained or lost. I don't know what's going on with that either. It's weird. Freedomon's objects. Freedomon is a genius, creates loads of really cool eye candy objects. I've used a lot of them all over the network. Again, highly recommended. Sometimes it's simple things like bus garages to really complex things like shopping centers, things that like multi-tile objects that can cover a bus station to make it look prettier. In fact, over here at Guard Lake, I believe these shelters here are part of Freedomon's objects. If I've miscredited again, because I've done that in the past, I do apologize, but I believe those are Freedomon's objects. Town walls, that's if you want to make your cities look old. Timberwolf's roads, yes, all these road tiles that you can see, including this weird pattern of streets here that I probably need to fix. Those are Timberwolf roads. Everything here. So you've got unpaved tracks, set roads, concrete roads, town roads, B roads, A roads, and motorways. If you watched my tutorial 2 videos ago, the road building one, you'd have seen me explain those in a little bit more detail. World Airliner set, that's a good one because it adds range. I believe it's that one. Again, if I find a depot here. Is it that one actually? It might not be that one. I don't know why I went supersonic then with my voice. And it's not that one, actually. The World Airliner set is different. Yes, the World Airliner set adds lots of different aircraft, but it's actually the one directly below it on the list here, the Aviate Minimal Sup WAS. Make of that what you will. But you see there's an extra element here, which is range. Now, this is measured in Manhattan distance, which is something I mentioned 2 episodes ago again when I did the road building tutorial. So that has a 256 Manhattan distance range. So if you want to check what that is, go back and watch my road building tutorial. But essentially, it's a grid-based measuring system. It's really cool, though, these aircraft. Really, really cool. Can be quite limiting, but that is part of the fun. So the fact that you've got a Zeppelin here or an airship that can travel 2,560 tiles, that's worth thinking about. And I believe you can turn off the range somewhere. Maybe not. I thought you could, but maybe not. What I would love is an option to change the range. So maybe like have it be half, double, triple, that kind of thing. Airports. Extra airports, and then we've got some more Oz stuff, so platforms, tracks, freight stations, stuff like that. Plaza as industry. Someone asked me this a long time ago now. When I built Plint Bridge Common over here, I placed these down. Now these are plazas, and they produce passengers. So that's why this station over here accepts passengers, despite the fact that it's built in the middle of nowhere. So these are all station tiles that I've got here. I think these are part of the Dutch station set. They might not be actually. But these statues are plazas, and all of them accept passengers and produce passengers. So when trains start running out of Plint Bridge Common again, you will see it accept passengers and produce passengers, which is really, really cool. There will be a depot down here in the future, so these streets here will get removed. There'll be some bus stations that need to be moved as well because of that. Where's another station that I can highlight? GSE, there we go. Trying to get like good stuff in the background here as well. There's no buses around here though, I don't think. So not much is going to move right now, but there we go. Timberwolf stations. Again, Timberwolf is a really, really good NewGRF creator. I don't think I've used the stations much, but there are other aspects, the road vehicles, the roads themselves that are really, really good. So I recommend anything from Timberwolf. More Oz stuff. Some of these are objects, some of these are station tiles. And then we got my 2 favorite ones at the bottom here, the multi-aspect signals. So if I find a multi-aspect, there's a good one. See the double yellows? And then there's a single yellow there, and then there's a path signal underneath that bridge. There you go, which is red. So you can see the British system red, single yellow, 2 yellows, green. That's because of the multi-aspect signal. It's really, really cool. It's such a small feature. I don't actually think it even affects the speed limit of trains, having the multi-aspect there. But my goodness, is it just so cool to see them go through the various colours every time a train goes past. Really, really cool. And then the most important one is the British Rail set. I think there is a more recent version than the one I've got. But for me here, I have the complexity turned to development mode. So every time there's a new train added, it should get added to my game. Running sounds are enabled, complexity. So yeah, again, everything. And then there are capacity multipliers and things like that. I don't try not to worry too much about that, to be honest. And then yeah, you can set it to max speed or design speed. Service speed or design speed. I have it set to service speed for realism reasons. If you want it to be design speed, so for example, an Intercity 225 would be service speed of 125, design speed 140. Simple as that. So if you want your faster trains, you set that to design speed. Alrighty, so that's it for my new GRFs. I'm going to pause my recording here for a second while I go take a drink and have some deep breaths, because that's quite a lot of talking in a short space of time. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at what game settings I play with. And again, there's going to be a little bit of talking involved there, so get your notepads ready. Okay, notebooks ready then, because here come the settings. For those of you that don't know, first and foremost, click on the cogwheel here, scroll down to settings, and here they are. Something else that not everybody knows is up here, there are different setting types. So there's game settings, company settings, client settings, or all. Then there's categories. So there's lots of different ones here. Some people only ever have basic open. I always have expert, show all settings, including the weird ones. Now again, there are a lot here, as you can see. Most of these I've kept on default. But the ones that are different, or ones that I need to highlight in particular, I'm going to talk about now. If I don't mention one, just assume it's left the way it is. So you got, speed limit, land and nautical. That's a new one. I didn't even know you could, might change that one day, who knows. But yeah, land, nautical, then you got power units, all that sort of thing. These are the measurements. And I'm one of those weird people that I measure a lot of things in meters, centimeters, millimeters. But when it comes to speed, I'm a miles per hour kind of guy. I know how to convert between miles and kilometers, but ultimately I prefer miles per hour because, I'm from the UK. That is actually what we use, believe it or not. I did engineering at university and college, so I can measure lots of different things in lots of different units, but I'm very much weird in that I do prefer miles per hour to kilometers per hour or even meters per second. So yeah, there we go. Graphics, again, pretty much default. Sound, all default. This is where things start to change a little bit. So I changed my news settings because I don't like things popping up on the screen. We've also got interface. Is there a way to expand all of them? There we go. Oh wow, that just got so much bigger. So interface, again, pretty much the same. Map mode, pretty much the same. Signals, so show signals on the driving side. So you can have these set to differently, but again, UK, we drive on the left, signals mainly are on the left, so that makes sense. Show restricted electric signals using default graphics. I thought I had that on because they are there, but sure. Route overlay. So yes, this is something that I have. If I click on a vehicle, you see the lines here and the box here. That is this, I believe. So if I was to turn that off, there you go. And then the lines as well. Now you can have plain lines or you can have dashed lines. Ultimately, I don't think it makes too much of a difference how you decide to do it. That might actually be better. But I use just the solid line just because. Although I might actually start using the dash line again. Now I've mentioned that. Just because I have the plan lines still up on screen, which sometimes they can be confusing. Pan window when mouse is at the edge. I have that turned off because the number of times where I go to go onto one of my other monitors, particularly to start and stop recordings, and then I end up in a completely different part of the map. It's a bit disorientating, so I turned that off. Besides that though, pretty much everything else here is kept at default. Construction. Link landscape toolbar to railroad, water, airport toolbars. That is important. If I was to open a window here, you can see the landscape one comes up as well. That is by design. That's because very rarely do I use the rail tool without the landscape tool. So it's nice to have them both there at the same time. I really like the fact that feature exists, actually. That's very, very nice indeed. Move viewport with the right mouse button. Yeah, that's this one. And also on the map, you can do that as well. It's very nice, very handy. Again, everything else here pretty much is set to... oh, sorry, that's the wrong bit. I'm down here now in construction. Keep building tools active after usage. Yep, I have that on. I've also made it... I don't know if that's here, actually, but I've made it so that you can build whilst paused. Just because I don't actually know why that's even a setting. I guess it's to stop people cheating. If you can cheat in a game like this, I don't know. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to be able to pause, build something, and then unpause. Default rail type. So I have the most used one, which I don't actually think is the standard non-electrified right now. I think it's the overhead electrified is my most used one. Although surely then it wouldn't highlight it. Maybe it is that one. But again, I think actually changing that to be honest, instead of most used, last used would have been more useful for that one. But sure. Same with the road. Now this is a big one. Ask before demolishing structures. The number of times in the past I've accidentally demolished a station or an industry because I just grabbed the bulldozer tool and swept across the map. Now, if I was to grab this, there's an industry just here. It comes up with a warning. In that case, I'm going to click no. Again, that is a lifesaver, believe it or not. That is a massive lifesaver. Let's scroll over the airport here as well while I do some talking. That'd be nice. If I move this, there we go. Right, departure boards. For those you don't know, this is a departure board. I've picked probably the worst place to highlight this. Station here would have been useful, but we don't have trains running at the moment. And I don't actually think, yeah, it doesn't appear we have many flights running out of it either. But effectively, you can see how this works. So we've got aircraft here. They're all listed on here, all three of them. Supposedly. Maybe there's a thing there. Anyway, doesn't matter too much. The departure boards then, so show at most 15. You can set this to, default value is 10. I think it goes up to 20. I've set it to 15, but to be honest, 10 is fine. So I can set it back to 10. Show arrivals, departures at most 240 days in advance. I don't know how this converts with ticks. But essentially, you know, you've got one that's not due for like 4 hours, but it will still show up on here because of the way you've got it set. I've got it set to the maximum. I like to make sure everything's coming through. Calculate departure board entries every 10 ticks. Again, I don't know what the default, looks like the default is 10, so I guess I've got that set to default. Show vehicle name. So if I was to grab this again, tick that on, you can see the name of the aircraft running the service. If I turn that off, you can see it's just the vehicle group, which is the one here. So there's group name. You can turn that on or off as well. It's entirely up to you. Show company name. So again, turn that on or off. That's going to be useful when I've got more people on the server, because then you can see exactly who's running which service. Also vehicle icon. So in this case, I know that these are aircraft. And then show the vehicle type in silver. I just do that because it adds a little bit of color to this. The green and the red as well add a nice bit of color. Use larger font. There you go. Pretty simple. I like the smaller font actually. I don't know how legible that is on mobile, but I like the smaller font. I think that's pretty cool. This one, again, it doesn't actually do much here, but if I find... I know Sanley's a good place for this actually. So if I scooch back over to Sanley, which is a long way away from Guard City, for those of you that don't know how big this map is. Let's close this one. So over here, you can see we've got one that goes to the airport. You see the little symbol there. If I turn that off, that symbol disappears. I like having it on. Arrival and departures on the same line. Yeah, I like to see when they arrive, when they leave. That's just for my benefit. If you like it as well, turn that on. I'm going to keep this on for a second. Only show entries for vehicles that can carry passengers. Now, I actually have this off. I used to have it on, but I have it off now because I like to see my freight trains where they go as well. Don't show termini that can be reached sooner on a later vehicle. So if I had another tram that left here that went to Pranley Loop, but it arrived at Pranley Loop before this one, if I tick this on, it will turn off the other Pranley Loop. Again, I don't know why you would do that. In real life, there's better reasons why you would do that, but yeah. This conditional orders is something I'm still learning myself. I've got it on my sheet to make a tutorial on it, but I keep pushing it back as I'm trying to learn more and more about it. I just have this set to assuming they'll be taken, because it helps with the planning of routes and things like that. Show all stations called at regardless of loading, unloading. Now I have this turned off because I use depots. I could turn this on. I don't think it's going to change anything. Actually, no, it does. Look, Sandley Tram Depot. There you go. That might be useful thinking about it, because then I can see there's a tram in at the moment and it's going to head back to the depot on its next order. But yeah, I'm just going to turn that off and then merge identicals. Whether identical departure board entries should be merged into a single one. That didn't seem to actually change anything, but I thought it did. Also, you notice every time I turn these on or off, it resets the window there, which, yeah, sure. Right, use client time settings instead of save game time setting. This is a new one, I believe. So if I turn that on, oh, that's cool. It's wrong, but it's cool. So right here in the UK right now, it's 2028. If I turn that on, you see it says 240, which is just not right. Might have to see if I can change that though, because that might be a useful feature. Right, show time in minutes rather than days. This is the one, so at the bottom here, you might just be able to see. Again, on mobile you might not, but at the bottom here I've got the date, which is the 23rd of June 2112, but I've also got time next to it. That is how this is controlled. If I turn this off, which I'm not going to because it might mess things up, that time will disappear. Ticks per minute. Now this is a big one. This is one that I've changed quite recently. It used to be 1860, now it's 1980. This is on the advice of Master Trams, who's doing my timetables for me. Apparently 1960 is an easier... 1980, sorry. Is it meant to be 1960? Have I done this wrong? One second. I think it is 1980. But I'm nervous now. Let me see if I can find the message again. Somewhere. I have a message somewhere where it says... where it is. Yeah, 1980. Good. Phew, I got nervous then. That's important because how your ticks are split up depends on how many ticks there are per hour, for example. Or if you're scheduling a vehicle and you want it to stop for a specific amount of time, sometimes it'll be easier to do it in ticks rather than minutes. Right now, all my timetables are done in minutes. In the future, they will be done in ticks. And it'll just help with, departures, arrivals, that kind of thing. Clock offset in minutes. Don't need to worry about that. Show date with time and status bar. So I've got full date here. So I could just go year. I could just go month and year. I like full date. There's no reason to have it. To be honest, I can just turn it off and have the time. And actually, I might just do that moving forward. I don't need to know the date and the day, month, and year, because right now I'm just running in time. Show timetable in ticks rather than days. Yes, so this is off right now, but in the future it will be on. Show leftover ticks. Don't need to worry about that because everything tends to be round numbers, but yeah. Show arrival and departure in timetables. So again, if I find a vehicle, hello tram, open this. You can see here it's got an arrival time and it has a departure time. This is very useful for me because it means I can see right now this tram is going to leave Sandley Tram Depot at 2:03 and it's going to arrive at Sandley Central at 2:04. If you're very, very into timetables and watching vehicle movements like I am, you'll know why that's so cool. It's just a nerdy thing, I know. Enter timetable start times as text. So yeah, again, that's kind of self-explanatory. Signals. So Show programmable pre-signal feature. Show no entry signal feature. I didn't know that's a thing, but yeah, that might be new. And then advanced routing restriction features. So that has the... Actually, no, this is just to do with the signaling window. That might be why it's new to me. That's why I couldn't see it. So yeah, there's lots of different things here. There's, you know, there's another setting there, and I think that's what the no entry signal feature is, maybe. But then I might be talking rubbish there. Fast forward speed limit. Again, this is something I tend not to worry about. I've got it on the default, but if you hold tab, it speeds the game up, and this is what it speeds it up to. You can increase it, you can decrease it. Autosave every 12 months. It takes me forever to do 12 months in the game, so I very rarely actually get an autosave these days, but I save like a freak anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. Autosave on network disconnection. That would be useful when I've got my server set up, but again, that's just set to default. Pretty much all of these right here are set to default right now, so don't need to worry too much about these. Some of them, vehicle names. So yeah, this is all default as well. There's news again. Company. Automatically builds semaphores before 1950. Again, this is all default. Don't need to worry too much about that. Signal types. So yeah, this is to do with advanced braking, I want to say, but that's not right at all. There's a braking thing. What's it called? Realistic braking. There it is. Forgot about that then. If you have realistic braking enabled, you only have access to a certain type of signal anyway, so it doesn't matter too much about that. Same here. Show signal type, all signals. Yeah. When dragging, keep fixed distance between signals. Why do I have this off? That might be useful to have on. And automatically remove signals during rail construction. That's also very useful. But I'm going to leave that one off because that might cause crashes. And it does warn that there. New orders, non-stop by default. Yes. So if you're building railways particularly, and you want trains to skip out certain stations but run on tracks where there are platforms on that line, non-stop. Non-stop to, non-stop via. Very, very useful. Now this one, new train orders stop by default at the far end of the platform. I used to have this on middle. I'm going to turn it back to middle because I think that'll be better. Starting company color. I'm going to change that to, yeah, random. Why not? When people join, they get a random color. Auto renew. Again, this is all pretty much default apart from this one. So I've put it 12 months after maximum age. I might just change that to when it reaches its life expiry. Just auto renew. Actually, can I turn that off? I don't think auto... oh, yeah. There you go. Turn it off. Much better. But you can have default values here. So if only if you've got £2 million in the bank will your vehicles auto-renew, providing this is turned on, of course. Services. I don't worry about services right now, so I've got that turned off. Service interval and all that stuff. Services are a pain in this, to be honest. So I try not to worry too much. Automatic timetables as well. Some of these were, this one here, use timetable to ensure vehicle separation by default. By default, it's on. I've turned it off. You see how I do my timetables. So we don't need to worry too much about that. Auto timetable vehicle separation factor. Again, we don't need to worry about that. Smoothness of order occupancy measurement. Default is 75. Again, it's entirely, whoops. It's entirely up to you what you do with that, but ultimately I just leave it as is. Round up autofill timetable times to multiples of this many ticks. Now this is one I probably will have to change. I'm not going to right now, but I probably will have to in the future. Enable competitors to buy and renew trains in depots, all that kind of stuff. This is mainly to do with AI, I believe. So I've just left it on. Yeah, all good. Accounting, right. First of all, inflation off. Do not turn that on. If you turn that on, you are playing with fire, particularly as this game is so advanced now in terms of time passed. You will probably go bankrupt almost immediately. Interest rates, all that stuff, pretty much all of this I think I've left on default. The subsidy multiplier I've turned up, but I don't actually think I have subsidies in the game right now, so I just ignore all this stuff, to be honest. Infrastructure maintenance I have turned off right now. I am tempted to turn that back on though. and actually start paying maintenance. But I need to experiment to see just how much that's going to cost me, because I can't imagine it's going to be cheap. Some of this stuff is also affected by the base costs mod, so it's a good idea to not play around with this if you don't really know what you're doing. Here we are then. Physics, train acceleration, realistic. You can have this on original or realistic. Same with the train braking model, which I've got on realistic, and the aspect limited one as well. So I think this is affected by the multi-aspect signals. So double yellows and single yellows will affect the train speed. I haven't run trains on here beyond the Trans Rapid since I've upgraded to multi-aspect, so I don't know for sure whether this will have an effect. Now, my tutorial world, I have been running trains, but not close together. So hopefully in a few weeks, once the high-speed timetable is up and running, which I hope is sooner rather than later now, because the signs are encouraging, we can test whether or not this works. Slope steepness for trains. Default is 3%. I've got it on 5. May even bump that up in future. Wagon speed limits I've got turned on. Enable train speed adaptation. When enabled, faster trains adjust their speed to match slower trains in front. That's actually a useful one. I'm going to turn that on. Hopefully that doesn't mess anything else up. Weight multiplier. So again, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you've got a heavy freight train, it can weigh 4 times the amount. That kind of thing. Road vehicle acceleration model, realistic. Steepness is 7. Amount of smoke and sparks, I've set it to realistic, but it really isn't. Yeah. Plane speed factor. Default is 1/4. I've got it set to 1/3. I may even change that again. I can't remember if it's the lower number or the higher number that makes the plane go faster. But yeah, I've got it set to 1/3. Ships avoid collisions. I've got that turned on. So in the past, ships used to just go through each other. Now they don't. The default is set to on. So yeah, it's a useful thing to have if you're a realism person like me. Articulated road vehicles may overtake. Got that turned on. Prevent road vehicles passing through each other when blocked. I've got that turned off right now. But for realism purposes, I might turn that on in future. But that's going to really mess with my trams at Sanley. So I'm going to be careful what I do with that. Let's change the view again. Got a nice freight terminal over here. Really good example of what the eye candy station tiles look like. Road vehicles slow down in curves. I've got that turned on as well. Now I think for the routing here, everything is set to default. So YAPF, which is yet another Pathfinder, is what that stands for. That's on by default. Keep it on. Disallow train reversing in stations. Well, that would mess me up particularly badly because I've got lots of terminus stations. So obviously that's going to remain off. Automatic reversing its signals is also going to remain off. Pathfind up to back of one-way path signals. Yeah, that's on. I guess keeping that on is fine. Forbid trains from making 90-degree turns. Now this is off by default, and I see people a lot on Reddit asking why their trains do weird loop things at stations. It's because you need to turn this on. So a 90-degree turn is if it was coming up this track here, and then it turned and went down that track there. You can already see how bad that would look. That's a 90-degree turn. So if you turn it off, the train can't make that turn, nor can it make this turn. It has to go straight on here or turn 45 degrees, which is realistic, sort of. 45-degree turns still aren't the best, but this is an isometric game, so you get what you're given. Pathfinder for road vehicles, again, YAPF. Same for ships. And reroute road vehicles when road layout changes. I might just set that to yes, because there might be faster routes. And then drive-through train depots is also on, but I've not played around with them too much since I turned that on. So it's off by default. I can't say too much about how useful that is. Disable servicing when breakdown set to none. I've got that turned off, mainly because I do sometimes want trains to go to the depot still for auto renewal and things like that, or if I've upgraded them, so that's useful. Service helicopters at helipads automatically. That's one that might be useful actually, but I'm going to leave it off for now. Only allow non-stop orders. I've got that on just in case I accidentally turn the other one off. It stopped it from being annoying. Close adjacent level crossings. This is a useful one. So let me find a level crossing here, for example. If I built a second road next to this first one. Oh, it's not done what I thought it would. Oh, actually no, sorry. It's not that at all. It's here. So you can see that there's only one barrier now. By default, there would be another barrier here and then another barrier here. If the train is coming in this direction, both barriers will drop. And to be honest, if I had this one here set up as well, this barrier will also drop, as would this one. I think it's between signals now. If a train has reserved a track between signals, all level crossing barriers in that reserved block, their barriers will drop. But yeah, this one is for parallel tracks, so it will close both these barriers, which is really, really useful if you don't want your trains to explode. What shall I show off now? Warnbridge Airport. We've not been there for a while. They're quite close to each other as well. This one's turned 90 degrees, which is a NewGRF. I can't remember which one it is. It's one of the airport ones that I read out. But yeah, you can turn your airports 90 degrees, which is really, really cool as well. Safer level crossings. So that's the one where the extra barriers are added. Right, limitations. I've changed quite a few things here. So when paused, allow all actions. That means you can build whilst paused. Allow landscaping under buildings, tracks, etc. So that's where you have, I guarantee you there's none on this side that I need to see. Here's a good one. So you can see here this wall that's appeared. That's because this setting here is on. Allow removal of more town-owned roads, bridges and tunnels. Again, I think that's on by default actually, as so is this one. Map maximum height. I think I upped that one so I could build Mount Pleasant, which is over... God, everything's so far away. It's a big map, and yet I still feel like it's small sometimes. So I could build this. Bridge length, 400 tiles. That was for the high-speed project. Bridge height, though, was because of these bridges here. So there's this one, which is the... I want to say it's the Prindhatton Springs Viaduct. But then we've also got, on the Grand Northern Line here, I think it's Cunfingway Bridge, this one. I can't remember what I named it. But these are fantastic, beautiful looking structures. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Huge fan of that. Really, really nice. And then, yeah, bridge height, tunnel length. Again, that's for high speed and Transrapid. Construction of tunnels underwater. Again, this is something that some people might not know even exists in OpenTTD. This is only in the JGR patch, I believe. The Joker patch might have it too, but I don't actually know if the Joker patch is still a thing. So we won't reference that one too much. But you can see here, look, tunnel underwater emerges on this side. It's off by default, which I think is a strange option. But you can turn it on here, and then you can build tunnels underwater. Airports never expired, that's useful. Vehicles never expired, that's also useful. Like I said, I'm in 2112 right now, but the map timeline is actually set in the 1990s. 94, in fact, which is the year the Channel Tunnel opened, and also the year I turned 1. Good vintage, 94. So, yeah, I want to make sure that I keep my 60s and 70s vehicles as well, because some of these lines aren't as privileged as others. No vehicles expire after. Again, I've just got that set default, which is off. No vehicles introduced after. Got that set off. Maximum number of trains per company, 5,000. That can easily go up, and I will be turning it up. The default is 500. Same here with the road vehicles. I could quite easily go over 5,000 vehicles. Right now, I have only 68 trains, but I used to have a lot more, obviously. I think I had over 1,000 trains before I got rid of them all. Already 785 road vehicles, and we've not even started with that. And you can also see how many like rail pieces. 861,000 rail pieces. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Also, my eyes are blue, but they're not quite that blue. And this looks absolutely nothing like me, to be honest. Maximum length of trains, I've got it set to 20 tiles. To be honest, I can reduce that down to 8 because that's the longest train I run on the network is the freight trains, which are 8 tiles. But that might change in the future. I'm tempted to go up to 10. We'll see how well that works. Train through load maximum speed. I'm going to reduce that to 6. So that is, if I come over to GNFT here, Guard City North, see there's only 2 tiles here that I use. The train can actually go through this, pause, unload wagons, continue, pause, unload wagons, and the speed it travels is as if it's a continuously moving train, which does happen in the real world. They're called merry-go-round trains here in the UK. I don't know what they're called elsewhere in the world. They're also called ro-ro, the system, because it's roll in, roll out, I think, or roll on, roll off. I can't remember what I think it's roll in, roll out over here. But in real life, the train doesn't stop. It keeps moving. There's little catch releases on the wagons that cause them to tip into the, in this case, basin. And then there's a loading one over here. So yeah, I've got that set to 6 now. Rail depot maximum speed. Oh, I'm going to turn that right down. 6 miles an hour as well. That's new. I don't think that's existed before. Maximum station spread, 64. By default, it's 12. But if it was 12, I wouldn't be able to build these. So I set it to the maximum, which is 64. Allow stations not directly... allowed to join stations not directly adjacent. It's on by default anyway, but that's the one where you control click and you can add. Where's a good example? I'm always looking for good examples. Where is a good example? Here, I suppose. There's a gap between Halliday Circus HLR station and the metro and the buses. So if you control click, you can join those together. You can turn it off. I don't know why you'd want to. Allow drive through road stops on town owned roads. Again, if that was off, I wouldn't be able to build half of what I do. So it's on by default. Owned by competitors as well. Disable electric rails. You can turn that on. I don't know why you'd want to, but you can. A maximum number of programmable pre-signal changes permitted at once, 256. Now, I don't think that's something that affects me. I can't imagine myself making 256 changes at once anyway, but sure. Enable building rivers. This is off by default, believe it or not, but that is this one here, being able to place rivers. So you can place canals no matter what, but this one here allows you to build natural rivers, which is quite a nice thing to be able to do sometimes. So I have that turned on. Enable removing sea and rivers. That's on as well. That's on by default anyway, so that's fine. Custom bridge heads for roads. So that is... Where's a good example? Somewhere around here. I believe I have one. Maybe I don't. I definitely do in Sanley, because I've done so much building in Sanley recently. Here. So you'll notice at the end of the bridges here, we've got junctions. That's because this one here is turned on, which it is by default. And then rail custom bridge heads as well, which actually I didn't know about. I want to test that. Let me use... Whoops, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted that one. Yeah, I want to test this. See if it actually works. This might be a game changer if it works. So let's do this. And then if I build... Yeah, we'll just go with girder, that's fine. Out this way, out this way. So in theory then, I should be able to do... Oh my goodness. Maybe I did know that was a thing actually. Maybe I did know that was a thing. That's freaking awesome. If that is something that's new, that's freaking awesome. Excellent stuff. Right, we'll stay on Sanley Central while we're here. All NewGRF objects under bridges. That might be a good one to turn on as well. Graphical issues though, which I don't always like. This one, it's off by default, but you can build stations and waypoints under bridges. That's something that's been in JGR for quite a while now, actually, years I think. But it's off by default, so not many people know you can do it. Same with, actually, tram stops here, road stops under bridges is on, and it's on by default. You can build docks under bridges. I'm going to leave that one off though, because I like having my docks out in the open. Purchasing land, do you know what? We'll have one tile at a time, just so there's no trolls. Bulk construction, sure. Objects, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got disasters, accidents. I've turned disasters off, because I don't like my UFOs coming in and destroying everything. Recessions are on, but again, I don't think they make much of a difference with the finance settings I've got right now, so it makes no odds. Breakdowns are off. They're on reduced by default, but I turn them off. Improved breakdowns is interesting. I did try turning breakdowns on because I thought it'd be realistic to have a train break down when it was running a service. That might end up being a thing again in the future, but basically the trains broke down way too much and it was messing around with the timetables. But now I've changed how I do my timetables, it might be worth looking at turning that back on again. Pay for repairing vehicles. Wow, I did not know that was a thing. That's on by default, so yeah. Cool. Plane crashes is reduced. I haven't turned them off completely. I've just got it on reduced. Very rarely does it happen though, so yeah. Trains from different companies may not crash into each other. Yeah, that's off as well. Right, a lot of this stuff is to do with the world generation. Excuse me, so we're not going to change too much here. Road vehicles drive on left. I'm again from the UK, so that's useful. Authorities. So local authority attitude is lenient. I can get away with certain things, but not massive things. Bribing is on. Exclusive transport rights is on, but I'm actually going to turn that off because again, don't want people to troll. Funding road construction, going to turn that off as well. Funding buildings is fine. And town-controlled noise level for airports is on. This is off by default. What it essentially means is you can't just smack an airport down wherever you like. You have to put it somewhere where it's outside of the noise. I believe the noise is, yeah, noise generated 3. So you can have, oh, these are, yeah, some of these are new. And then, yeah, there's your orientation as well. So if I go for like a large airport, metropolitan, it creates 8 noise. And if I select a town, noise limit in town 0, max 21. So you can get away with a certain amount. I don't know if there's any that actually exceeds 21. Intercontinental, there you go. So you have to build those outside of town, which is fine. Town growth speed, all that kind of stuff. Set it to slow. By default, it's normal, but I like things to be... In fact, I might even turn it to extremely slow just to stop all these massive, massive, massive metropolises from springing up. I am going to go on a thing at some point where I reduce the size of some of the towns. Not so much these ones. These are fine. But there are some, like, these ones over here that don't have anything serving them, and yet they're massive. It's like, that's not very realistic, is it? So we're going to go on a bit of a demolishing spree at some point. Town growth speed depends on transported cargo. Fine. And then, yeah, these are all off by default. Actually, no. That one's off by default. Custom town zone calculations. Yeah. Towns are allowed to build roads. I've got that turned off. And towns are allowed to build level crossings. I've also got turned off. I may turn this one off as well, actually, because I don't want towns to build anything. I want to build everything for them. That's fine. And they're not allowed to build tunnels. Limit towns building continuous incline roads. So yeah, you've had ones in the past where they have like a 20 tile increase up a hill because it's the only way the town could expand. I've set it to 4. I think that is its default. Yeah. So it just stops them building those weird snaky roads that are like spider legs that go up hillsides. Funding towns. Yeah. That's set to, actually that's set to forbidden normally, but I've got allowed custom town layout. Might change that. A few other things here set to default. We're almost done. There's a few more things here. So industries, primary industry construction method as other industries, or manual, sorry, I've got it set as manual. So basically, if you want an industry, you got to fund it yourself, which I think is fair enough. Flat area around industries, 1 tile, could turn that off. Might as well turn that off. Multiple similar industries per town, that's turned on. It's off by default, but I've got it turned on. Maximum distance from edge for oil industries, it's 32 tiles by default, and that's what I've got it set to here. Economy type, smooth, which is exactly what it is by default. Makes production changes more often and in smaller steps. Frozen economy stops production changes and industry closures. I guess normal does the opposite. Company stations can serve industries with attached neutral stations. That's on by default. So again, I've not really played around with that one too much. So yeah, oil rigs may also be served by company-owned stations built nearby. That's fine. I have messed around with this one, I believe. The industry factor. Because we were producing way too much. Like over here, we were producing way too much coal. So I changed it. Although we have got double production right now because we are delivering engineering supplies. So that does look a little skewed. But essentially, it's slowed down probably more than I wanted it to. So I'll see if I can speed that up again. And then, yeah, balanced. So if you have coal Right. Final things. Computer players, which I don't need to worry about because I don't have any. And then infrastructure sharing. So I've got all of these on. They're off by default, but I've got them turned on. Eventually, I am still going to run trains on this network myself, but eventually other people will be running most of the services. And in order to do that, they need to be able to access the track. So I'm going to own the track, the signals, the stations, pretty much everything. Kind of like a network rail or whatever they're becoming these days. Everyone else will then be able to run their trains or buses or whatever on my infrastructure. So I would own the depot here and the depot here, and they'll just be able to buy and run vehicles on the infrastructure. So all of these are on. The toll I'm going to increase in the future. Right now it's set to 100 per day for all of them. Allow companies in debt to pay sharing fees. I don't know what that means. It doesn't even say what that means. So I'm just going to leave it as default, which is off. Allow sending of money to other companies. That's on. Allow buying shares from other companies. That is off. I don't want people doing hostile takeovers on this server. No, sir. And then, yeah, money cheats off. Rename towns off. Override town settings off. And then this bottom one here. If creating a connection to the server fails, yeah, that's set to default as well. Alrighty then. That's it. Those are all my new GRFs. Those are all my settings. This is probably the longest video I've recorded in this series. So we've had the shortest, very quickly followed by the longest. And I've recorded both of those in the same day. So my voice is shot. If you have any other questions about my settings or my new GRFs, do feel free to drop them down below. Like I said at the top of the video, I am going to run a tutorial in the future. It might be, if not the next one, then the one after, showing how to install NewGRFs to an existing save. There is a lot of risk involved in doing that. It's not something I particularly recommend, but I was like a year deep into the save when I decided to add some stuff. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, didn't screw things up, basically. It is possible, it's just not necessarily recommended. I need to get these trams to stop chasing each other. Because I changed the number of ticks in a minute not long ago, just before I started recording this video, in fact, I do have some vehicles here that I had to reset the waiting times for. So I've got some on autofill, and I think that might be messing things up a little bit. So I'll have to see about that. But yeah, like I said, any questions on settings on NewGRFs, feel free to drop them down below. If you've got any other subjects that you'd like to see me cover in this series that I haven't already, let me know down below. Be very much appreciated. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this video helpful, and share it as well if you want to amongst the OpenTTD community. I always really appreciate people who help me with that. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Plenty more OpenTTD tutorials coming up in the near future. And if you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you everyone for your continued support. It is very, very much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, one and all. And until next time, I will see you soon.